When Peter Wilson stepped down from being chief executive at Norwich Theatre Royal after decades of service, I instantly said to him, Peter, is there anything you would like to do as an artist that you haven't done for ages at the festival? And he said, yes, instantly. I'll learn the whole of the 4 quartets for you by T.S. Eliot. And it ranks as one of the best commissions we've done in the last 12 years.
So it was 1990 when Peter first came here with his family and saw that Henry and I had sort of started an open-air theatre out here. And the first one was literally in front of the house, and it was Comedy of Errors. The following year, he became involved, and he played Toby Belch. And every year from then on, he played Falstaff, he played Prospero, he played Petruchio, he played Oberon. And it was actually the last time he really acted a lot. And then I realised by just looking at photographs of him that he was always reading the 4 quartets. And it started because his mother had adored it, and he'd read it to his mother. And he began to get interested in why she liked it so much. And so he began reading it and learning little bits of it.
He began to give snippets of it, sort of quite casually. I mean, it would come out, in the middle of dinner. I mean, extraordinary. Anyway, we said to him, look, you ought to share this. Why don't you come up to High House and we'll gather some friends and you can do it.
We bullied him, basically. So, because he'd learnt Burnt Norton, which is the first one, and he'd done that. We were having dinner with Anthony, there was Vicken, and there was several friends there, and everybody had, for some reason, said, oh, come on, Peter. And he said, well, I've just learnt this. And he did the whole of Burnt Norton, and we all said, and now we want the rest. So you better go away and learn it.
And he did, and it was extraordinary. I mean, you could have heard a pin drop. The pauses are as important as what is said. The degree to which he was able to embody the uncertainty about art, about the making of a poem that is what makes it so touching but also so pertinent. And then having done that here, I said, this is, you've got to do this to a wider audience. Let's do it in London. And I asked the Royal Academy if we could do it in the Reynolds Rooms, which is what we did.
So I first saw it in a church in South Norfolk, small church, very intimate, and it was just low light, and it was the most beautiful thing. It was been wonderful to hear in that setting somehow, help to make sense of it. It's such a difficult poem, but he had the ability to make it understandable, or parts of it understandable, and bring it and make it intimate as well. And I think that's a great gift.
What I remember was particularly the bits in it where he's questioning, in a sense, art's responsibility to life. And it's almost, he is almost thinking of the poem as he is reciting it. I mean, in other words, he's originating it in that moment, and that's what makes it so vital. And that was what I think everybody was touched by. Suddenly this poem was not a made thing. It wasn't a polished fossil that was being shared. It was being reanimated. It was an alive moment of making thought communicable. And, well, those things are rare.
Afterwards, I just said, Peter, have you recorded this? Has it been filmed? Has it been recorded? No, I don't want. But it took a few years before we, and I kept saying to him, how about we do this? How about we film it? Peter, he was a modest person as well. He knew his accomplishments. He was very, very erudite, a sort of polymath, and had done so much producing and directing, etc. But he was also modest, and I think he felt that, well, is this really of interest to show? And so, yes, he needed a little bit of persuading. And then eventually I thought, let's try to bring it back to that first experience, that church experience, and find another small country church. And I looked around, found 4 or 5 that might be possible, and he visited, and he liked the look of this disused, very pretty church that's not really used for services anymore.
Oh gosh, when we were filming it in the church, and I'd just gone along to be there, and suddenly the book was thrust into my hand, and I was told I had to follow it and then tell him when he got it wrong. Well, he kept on getting it wrong, and I became the most unpopular person in that church because I had to stop saying, sorry, David, it just got a bit wrong, and he had to go back and do it again. Everyone would go, and it was important he got it right. It was important he got it right. Every word. I mean,
and was a wonderful producer, director, and manager. And here at Houghton, he put on an extraordinary production of Twelfth Night. So he assembled an all-star cast for the production here at Houghton, which was to raise funds for Theatre Royal Norwich, in front of the house.
Peter could always think outside the box. As you know, he has the most extraordinarily creative mind and a very deep intelligence. I've never known a man actually inspire such love as Peter did. And I suppose that was his greatest gift to me as Lord Lieutenant and his greatest gift to Norfolk. One of the things for which I think Peter will be best remembered was the Royal Salute at the Royal Norfolk Show in 2022. This was to honour Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee year, and it was the most amazing concept. Peter treated the showground as a great big stage. Well, Peter treated Norfolk, really, the lieutenancy, as a stage to showcase the best of Norfolk. He certainly treated the showground as such, and it was completely his idea. He wanted to do something to honour Her Majesty that would also stress her links with the Commonwealth and, of course, with the nation at home. It was a mass of young people, over 1,000, musicians, dancers. Anna Mudeka choreographed the dancing, and there was a particular chorus song that was written particularly that the children sang. It was just wild, really. All these children came running on with such energy. The dancing was exquisite. The music was absolutely wonderful. And it took Norfolk by storm. And I think I'd have never got there without Peter. It was a truly wonderful thing to happen. It happened both days. And that was Peter.
What he did was he took things seriously, and he's a grafter, so he just works. He gets up in the morning, 6:30, there, making sure everything is done, all the sorts of things which a lot of people who are that bright wouldn't bother with. They'd find somebody else to do, but he'd do it. Do all the, after he'd done the washing up, by the way, but absolutely hard worker. Nothing was too much bother.
I know very, very few people who had a natural gift for, but almost unstoppable, empathy and sympathy to other people's creative potential and the wish to enhance and enable. And I think that his life is marked by the fact that, unlike most, you could say, people in the theatre business, powered by ego and desperate for self-aggrandizement, he was the absolute opposite. He would see the potential in something, in someone, and want to support it and evolve it and make it happen, make it better, make it good. And I miss him terribly. I think his intellectual interest, but his ability to enliven, understand, and extend people's potential and the potential of a coming together.
Peter opened doors for people. He helped us at the beginning of the festival 12 years ago. He was generous, and I'm just really glad that we were a part of Peter rediscovering himself as an artist with this beautiful project.
I think he was trying to work out what the Four Quartets was about. And I think by the time he died, he sort of had, funnily enough. And that last film of David's was brilliant because he'd done it so many times and he'd sort of really got it by then. And it was his last performance. It was his putting together his acting and his sort of intellectual side. It was perfect.
T.S. Eliot's Four Quartets are universally recognized as a major poetic achievement of the 20th century. Their reputation looms like a mountain range that can only be scaled with the best mental equipment and a great deal of stamina. Eliot had died in 1965, laden with national and international honours and widely regarded as one of the greatest poets in the English language. Four Quartets had been his final poetic statement. After 1943, he published no more serious poems. But a focus on the poems and their intellectual difficulties loses, I think, the shape of the overall argument and the voice of the poet, a 55-year-old man trapped in a loveless and childless marriage, uncertain about his religious affiliations, living through the build-up of the Second World War and experiencing in person the threat of annihilation. The title of each of the quartets is personally significant. Burnt Norton is the name of a manor house with a rose garden that Eliot had visited. East Coker is the village from which Eliot's ancestors had emigrated to America in the 18th century. The Dry Salvages is a trio of rocks in the sea off Massachusetts where Eliot had sailed as a young man. And the church at Little Gidding had housed a devout religious community that had sheltered Charles I on his flight from Cromwell's army. I learned the quartets partly so I could approach an understanding of the narrative that drives them, but more importantly for me, to try to hear the voice of the poet himself. However imperfect my memory from time to time, this is as close as I can get. Time present and time past are both, perhaps, present in time future, and time future contained in time past. If all time is eternally present, all time is unredeemable. What might have been is an abstraction, remaining a perpetual possibility only in a world of speculation. What might have been and what has been point to one end which is always present. Footfalls echo in the memory, down the passage which we did not take, towards the door we never opened into the rose garden. My words echo thus in your mind. But to what purpose disturbing the dust on a bowl of rose leaves, I do not know. Other echoes inhabit the garden. Shall we follow? Quick, said the bird, find them, round the corner, through the first gate into our first world. Shall we follow the deception of the thrush into our first world? There they were, dignified, invisible, moving without pressure over the dead leaves in the autumn heat through the vibrant air. And the bird called in response to the unheard music hidden in the shrubbery, and the unseen eye-beam crossed, for the roses had the look of flowers that are looked at. There they were as our guests, accepted and accepting. So we moved, and they, in a formal pattern, along the empty alley into the box circle to look down into the drained pool. Dry the pool. Dry concrete. Brown-edged. And the pool was filled with water out of sunlight. The lotus rose quietly, quietly. The surface glittered out of heart of light, and they were behind us, reflected in the pool. Then a cloud passed, and the pool was empty. Go, said the bird. For the leaves were full of children hidden excitedly containing laughter. Go, 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 said the bird. Humankind cannot bear very much reality. Time past and time future, what might have been and what has been, point to one end which is always present. Garlic and sapphires in the mud clot the bedded axle tree. The trilling wire in the blood sings below inveterate scars, appeasing long-forgotten wars. The dance along the artery, the circulation of the lymph, are figured in the drift of stars, ascend to summer in the tree. We move above the moving tree, in light upon the figured leaf, and here upon the sodden floor below, the boar-hound and the boar pursue their pattern as before, but reconciled among the stars. At the still point of the turning world, neither flesh nor fleshless, neither from nor towards. At the still point there the dance is, but neither arrest nor movement. And do not call it fixity where past and future are gathered, neither movement from nor towards, neither ascent nor decline. Except for the point, the still point, there would be no dance. And there is only the dance. I can only say, there we have been. But I cannot say where, and I cannot say for how long, for that is to place it in time. The inner freedom from the practical desire, release from action and suffering, release from the inner and the outer compulsion, yet surrounded by a grace of sense, a white light, still and moving, Erhebung without motion, concentration without elimination, both the new world and the old made explicit, understood in the completion of its partial ecstasy, the resolution of its partial horror. Yet the enchainment of past and future, woven in the weakness of the changing body, protects mankind from heaven and damnation which flesh cannot endure. Time past and time future allow but a little consciousness. To be conscious is not to be in time, but only in time can the moment in the rose garden, the moment in the arbour where the rain beats, the moment in the draughty church at Smokefall be remembered, involved with past and future. Only through time, time is conquered. Here is a place of disaffection, time before and time after in a dim light. Neither daylight, investing form with lucid stillness, turning shadow into transient beauty with slow rotation suggesting permanence, nor darkness to purify the soul, emptying the sensual with deprivation, cleansing affection from the temporal. Neither plenitude nor vacancy, only a flicker over the strained, time-ridden faces, distracted from distraction by distraction, filled with fancies and empty of meaning, tumid apathy with no concentration, men and bits of paper whirled by the cold wind that blows before and after time, wind in and out of unwholesome lungs, time before and time after, eructation of unhealthy souls into the faded air, the torpid driven on the wind that sweeps the gloomy hills of London, Hampstead and Clerkenwell, Campden and Putney, Highgate, Primrose and Ludgate. Not here. Not here, the darkness in this twittering world. Descend lower. Descend only into the world of perpetual solitude. World, not world. But that which is not world, internal darkness, deprivation and destitution of all property, desiccation of the world of sense, evacuation of the world of fancy, inoperancy of the world of spirit. This is the one way. And the other is the same, not in movement, but in abstention from movement, while the world moves in appetency on its metalled ways of time past and time future. Time and the bell have buried the day. The black cloud carries the sun away. Will the sunflower turn to us? Will the clematis stray down and yield, tendril and spray, clutch and cling? Chill fingers of you be curled down on us. After the kingfisher's wing has answered light to light and is silent, the light is still, at the still point of the turning world. Words move. Music moves only in time, but that which is only living can only die. Words after speech reach into the silence. Only by the form, the pattern, can words or music reach the stillness, as a Chinese jar still moves perpetually in its stillness. Not the stillness of the violin while the note lasts, not that only, but the coexistence, or say that the beginning and the end were always there, before the beginning and after the end, and all is always now. Words strain, crack, and sometimes break under the burden, under the tension, slip, slide, perish, decay with imprecision, will not stay in place, will not stay still. Shrieking voices, scolding, mocking, or merely chattering always assail them. The word in the desert is most attacked by voices of temptation. The crying shadow in the funeral dance, the loud lament of the disconsolate chimera. The detail of the pattern is movement, as in the figure of the 10 stairs. Desire itself is movement, not in itself desirable. Love is itself unmoving, only the cause and end of movement, timeless and undesiring except in the aspect of time caught in the form of limitation between unbeing and being. Sudden, in a shaft of sunlight, even while the dust moves, there rises the hidden laughter of children in the foliage. Quick now, here, now, always. Ridiculous. The waste, sad time stretching before and after. In my beginning is my end. In succession, houses rise and fall, crumble, are extended or removed, destroyed, restored, or in their places an open field or a factory or a bypass. Old stone to new buildings, old timber to new fires, old fires to ashes, ashes to the earth, which is already flesh, fur, and feces, bone of man and beast, cornstalk and leaf. Houses live and die. There is a time for building, and a time for living and for generation, and a time for the wind to break the loosened pane, and to shake the wainscot where the field mouse trots, and to shake the tattered arras woven with a silent motto. In my beginning is my end. Now the light falls across the open field, leaving the deep lane shuttered with branches, dark in the afternoon where you lean against a bank while a van passes. And the deep lane insists on the direction into the village in the electric heat, hypnotized. In a warm haze, the sultry light is absorbed, not refracted, by grey stone. The dahlias sleep in the empty silence, wait for the early owl. In that open field, if you do not come too close, on a summer midnight you can hear the music of the weak pipe and the little drum, and see them dancing around the bonfire, the association of man and woman in dancing, signifying matrimony, a dignified and commodious sacrament. Two and two, necessary conjunction, holding each other by the hand or the arm which betokeneth concord. Round and round the fire, leaping through the flames, or joined in circles, rustically solemn or in rustic laughter, lifting heavy feet in clumsy shoes, earth feet, loam feet, lifted in country mirth, mirth of those long since under earth nourishing the corn, keeping time, keeping the rhythm in their dancing, as in the living seasons, the time of the seasons and the constellations, the time of milking and the time of harvest, the time of the coupling of man and woman and that of beasts, feet rising and falling, eating and drinking, dung and death. Dawn points, and another day prepares for heat and silence. Out at sea the dawn wind wrinkles and slides. I am here, or there, or elsewhere, in my beginning. What is the late November doing with the disturbance of the spring? Creatures of the summer heat and snowdrops writhing under feet. Hollyhocks that aim too high, red into grey and tumble down. Late roses filled with early snow. Thunder rolled by the rolling stars, simulates triumphal cars deployed in constellated wars. Scorpion fights against the sun until the sun and moon go down. Comets weep and Leonids fly, hunt the heavens, and the plains whirled in a vortex that shall bring the world to that destructive fire that burns before the ice cap rains. That was a way of putting it. Not very satisfactory. Paraphrastic study in a worn-out poetical fashion, leaving one still with the intolerable wrestle with words and meanings. The poetry does not matter. It was not to start again what one had expected. What was to be the value of the long looked forward to, long hoped for calm, the autumnal serenity, the wisdom of age? Had they deceived us? Deceived themselves, the quiet-voiced elders, bequeathing us merely a receipt for deceit, the serenity only a deliberate habitude, the wisdom only a knowledge of dead secrets useless in the darkness into which they peered, or from which they turned their eyes. There is, it seems to us at best, only a limited value in the knowledge derived from experience, for the knowledge imposes a pattern and falsifies. The pattern is new in every moment, and every moment is a new and shocking valuation of all that we have been. We are only undeceived of that which deceiving could no longer harm. In the middle, not only in the middle of the way, but all the way in a dark wood, in a bramble, on the edge of a grimpen, where is no secure foothold, menaced by monsters, fancied lights, risking enchantment. Do not let me hear of the wisdom of old men, but rather of their folly, their fear of fear and frenzy, their fear of possession, belonging to another, or to others, or to God. The only wisdom we can hope to acquire is the wisdom of humility. Humility is endless. The houses are all gone under the sea. The dancers are all gone under the hill. Oh, dark, dark, dark. They all go into the dark. The vacant interstellar spaces, the vacant into the vacant. The captains, the merchant bankers, eminent men of letters, generous patrons of art, the statesmen and the rulers, distinguished civil servants and chairmen of many committees, industrial lords and petty contractors, they all go into the dark. And dark the sun and moon, and the Almanac de Gotha, the Stock Exchange Gazette, the Directory of Directors. Cold the sense, and lost the motive of action. And we all go with them, into the silent funeral. No one's funeral, because there is no one to bury. I said to my soul, "Be still, and let the dark come upon you, which shall be the darkness of God." As in a theatre, the lights are extinguished for the scene to be changed with a hollow rumble of wings and a movement of darkness on darkness, and we know that the hills, the trees, the distant panorama, and the bold imposing facade are all being rolled away. Or as when an underground train in the tube stops too long between stations, and the conversation rises and slowly fades into silence, and we see behind every face the mental emptiness deepen, leaving only the growing terror of nothing to think about. Or as when the mind under ether is conscious, but conscious of nothing. I said to my soul, "Be still, and wait without hope, for hope would be hope for the wrong thing. Wait without love, for love would be love of the wrong thing. There is yet faith, but the faith and the love and the hope are all in the waiting. Wait without thought, for you are not ready for thought. So, the darkness shall be the light, and the stillness the dancing, whisper of running streams, and winter lightning, wild thyme unseen, and the wild strawberry, laughter in the garden. Echoed ecstasy not lost but requiring, pointing to the agony of death and birth. You say I'm repeating something I've said before. I shall say it again. Shall I say it again? In order to arrive there, to arrive where you are, to get from where you are not, you must go by a way wherein there is no ecstasy. In order to arrive at what you do not know, you must go by a way which is the way of ignorance. In order to possess what you do not possess, you must go by the way of dispossession. In order to arrive at what you are not, you must go through the way in which you are not. And what you do not know is the only thing you know, and what you own is what you do not own, and where you are is where you are not. The wounded surgeon plies the steel that questions the distempered part. Beneath the bleeding hands, we feel the sharp compassion of the healer's art, resolving the enigma of the fever chart. Our only health is the disease. If we obey the dying nurse, whose constant care is not to please, but to remind of our and Adam's curse, and that to be restored, our sickness must grow worse. The whole earth is our hospital, endowed by the ruined millionaire, wherein, if we do well, we shall die of the absolute paternal care that will not leave us, but prevents us everywhere. The chill ascends from feet to knees. The fever sings in mental wires. If to be warmed, then I must freeze and quake in frigid purgatorial fires, of which the flame is roses and the smoke is briars. The dripping blood our only drink, the bloody flesh our only food. In spite of this, we like to think that we are sound, substantial flesh and blood. Again, in spite of that, we call this Friday good. So, here I am, in the middle way, having spent 20 years largely wasted, the years of l'entre-deux-guerres, trying to learn to use words. And every attempt is a wholly new start, and a different kind of failure, because one's only learned to get the better of words for the thing one no longer has to say, or the way in which one is no longer disposed to say it. And so, each venture is a new beginning, raid on the inarticulate with shabby equipment always deteriorating in the general mess of imprecision of feeling, undisciplined squads of emotion. And what there is to conquer by strength or submission has already been discovered several times by men whom one cannot hope to emulate, but there is no competition. There's only the fight to recover what has been lost and found and lost again and again, and now under conditions that seem unpropitious. But perhaps neither gain nor loss. For us, there is only the trying. The rest is not our business. Home is where one starts from. As we go older, the world becomes stranger, the pattern more complicated between dead and living. Not the intense moment, isolated, with no before and after, but a lifetime burning in every moment. And not the lifetime of one man only, but of old stones that cannot be deciphered. There is a time for the evening under starlight, a time for the evening under lamplight, the evening with the photograph album. Love is most nearly itself when here and now cease to matter. Old men ought to be explorers. Here or there does not matter. We must be still, and still moving into another intensity for a further union, a deeper communion through the dark, cold, and empty desolation. The wave cry, the wind cry, the vast waters of the petrel and the porpoise. In my end is my beginning. I do not know much about gods, but I think that the river is a strong brown god, sullen, untamed, and intractable. Patient to some degree, at first recognized as a frontier, useful, untrustworthy as a conveyor of commerce, then only a problem confronting the builder of bridges. The problem once solved, the brown god is almost forgotten by dwellers in cities, ever, however, implacable, keeping his seasons and his rages, destroyer, reminder of what men choose to forget, unhonored, unpropitiated by worshippers of the machine, but waiting, watching, and waiting. His rhythm was present in the nursery bedroom, in the rank ailanthus of the April dooryard, in the smell of grapes on the autumn table, and the evening circle in the winter gaslight. The river is within us. The sea is all about us. The sea is the land's edge also, the granite into which it reaches, the beaches where it tosses its hints of earlier and other creations, the starfish, the horseshoe crab, the whale's backbone, the pools where it offers to our curiosity the more delicate algae, and the sea anemone. It tosses up our losses, the torn seine, the shattered lobster pot, the broken oar, and the gear of foreign dead men. The sea has many voices, many gods, and many voices. The salt is on the briar rose, the fog is on the fir trees. The sea howl and the sea yelp are different voices often together heard. The whine in the rigging, the menacing caress of a wave that breaks on water, the distant rote in the granite teeth and the wailing warning of the approaching headland are all sea voices, and the heaving groaner rounded homeward, and the seagull, and under the oppression of the silent fog, the tolling bell measures time. Not our time, rung by the unhurried ground swell, a time older than the time of chronometers, older than time, counted by anxious, worried women lying awake, calculating the future, trying to unweave, unwind, unravel, and piece together the past and the future between midnight and dawn, when the past is all deception and the future futureless, before the morning watch, when time stops and time is never ending. And the groundswell that is and was from the beginning clangs the bell. Where is there an end of it? The soundless wailing, the silent withering of autumn flowers dropping their petals and remaining motionless. Where is there an end to the drift of the sea, the prayer of the bone on the beach, the unprayable prayer at the calamitous annunciation? There is no end but addition, the trailing consequence of further days and hours, while emotion takes to itself the emotionless years of living amongst the breakage of what was believed in as the most reliable and therefore the fittest for renunciation. There is the final addition, failing pride and resentment at failing powers, the unattached devotion which might pass for devotion less in a drifting boat with a slow leakage and the silent listening to the undeniable clamor of the bell of the last annunciation. Where is there an end of them, the fishermen, sailing into the wind's tail where the fog cowers? We cannot think of a time that is oceanless, or of an ocean that is not littered with wastage, or of a future that is not liable, like the past, to have no destination. We have to think of them as forever bailing, setting and hauling while the northeast lowers over shallow banks unchanging and erosionless, or drawing the money, drying sails at dockage. Not as making a trip that will be unpayable for a haul that will not bear examination. There is no end to it. The voiceless wailing. No end to the withering of withered flowers, to the movement of pain that is painless and motionless, to the drift of the sea, the drifting wreckage, the prayer of the bone, to death, its God. Only the hardly, barely prayable prayer of the one annunciation. It seems, as we grow older, that the past has a new pattern and ceases to be a mere sequence or even development, the latter a partial fallacy encouraged by superficial notions of evolution, which becomes in the popular mind a means of disowning the past. The moments of happiness, not that sense of well-being, fruition, fulfillment, affection, security, or even a very good dinner, but the sudden illumination. We had the experience but missed the meaning. And approach to the meaning restores the experience in a different form beyond any meaning we can assign to happiness. I've said before that the past experience, revived in the meaning, is not the experience of one life only, but of many generations. Not forgetting something that is probably quite ineffable, the backward look behind the assurance of recorded history, the backward half look over the shoulder towards the primitive terror. Now, we come to understand that the moments of agony, whether or not due to misunderstanding, having hoped for the wrong things or dreaded the wrong things, is not in question, are likewise permanent with such permanence as time has. We appreciate this better in the agony of others nearly experiencing, involving ourselves, than in our own. For our own past is covered with the currents of action. But the torment of others is an experience unqualified, unworn by subsequent attrition. People change and smile, but the agony abides. time the destroyer, is time the preserver, like the river, with its cargo of dead Negroes, cows, chicken coops, the bitter apple, and the bite in the apple. And the ragged rock in the restless waters, waves wash over it, fogs conceal it. On a halcyon day, it is merely a monument. In navigable weather, it is always a sea mark to lay a course by. But in the somber season and the sudden fury is what it always was. I sometimes wonder if that is what Krishna meant, among other things, or one way of saying the same thing, that the future is a faded song, a royal rose, a lavender spray of wistful regret for those who are not yet here to regret, pressed between yellow leaves of a book that has never been opened. And the way up is the way down, and the way forward is the way back. You cannot face it steadily, but this thing is sure. Time is no healer. The patient is no longer here. When the train starts and the passengers settle to fruit, periodicals, business letters, and those who saw them off have left the platform, their faces relax from grief into relief to the sleepy rhythm of 100 hours. Fare forward, travellers, not escaping the past into new lives or into any future. You are not the same people who left that station or who will arrive at any terminus watching the narrowing rails slide together behind you, and on the deck of the drumming liner watching the furrow that widens behind you. You shall not think the past is finished or the future is before us. At nightfall, in the rigging and the aerial is a voice descanting, though not to the ear, the murmuring shell of time, and not in any language. Fare forward, you who think that you are voyaging. You are not those who saw the harbour receding, or those who will disembark. Here, between the hither and the farther shore, while time is withdrawn, consider the past and future with an equal mind. At the moment which is not of action or inaction, you can receive this. On whatever sphere of being the mind of a man is intent, at the time of death, that is the real action. And the time of death is every moment that shall fructify in the lives of others. But do not think of the fruits of action. Fare forward, O voyagers, O seamen, you who came to port and you whose bodies will suffer the trial and judgment of the sea or whatever event. This is your real destination. So Krishna, as when he admonished Arjuna on the field of battle, not farewell, but fare forward, voyagers. Lady whose shrine stands on the promontory, pray for all those who are in ships, those whose business has to do with fish, and those concerned with every lawful traffic and those who conduct them. Repeat a prayer also on behalf of women who've seen their sons or husbands setting forth and not returning. Filia del tuo filio, Queen of Heaven. Also pray for those who were in ships and who left their bodies on the sand, in the sea's lips, down the dark throat which will not reject them, or wherever cannot reach them the sound of the sea bells, perpetual Angelus. To communicate with Mars, converse with spirits, report the behavior of the sea monster, describe the horoscope, horospicate, or scry, observe disease in signatures, evoke biographies from wrinkles of the palm and tragedy from the fingers, release omens by sortilege or tea leaves, riddle the inevitable with playing cards, fiddle with pentagrams or barbituric acids, and dissect the recurrent image into pre-conscious terrors, explore the womb or tomb or dreams. These are the usual pastimes and drugs and features of the present, always will be, especially where there is distress of nations and perplexity, whether on the shores of Asia or in the Edgware Road. Men's curiosity searches past and future and clings to that dimension. But to apprehend the point of intersection of the timeless with time is an occupation for the saint. No occupation either, but something given and taken, a lifetime's death in ardor and love and selflessness and self-surrender. For most of us, there's only the unattended moment, the moment in and out of time, the distraction, fit, lost in a shaft of sunlight, the wild time unseen, the winter lightning, the waterfall, or music heard so deeply it is not heard at all, but you are the music while the music lasts. These are hints and guesses. Hints followed by guesses. And the rest is prayer, observance, discipline, thought, and action. The hint half guessed, the gift half understood is incarnation. Here, the impossible union of spheres of existence is actual. Here, past and future are conquered and reconciled. Where action were otherwise movement of that which is only moved and has in it no source of movement, driven by demonic, chthonic powers. And right action is freedom from past and future also. For most of us, this is the dream never here to be realized, who are only undefeated because we've gone on trying. We, content at the last if our temporal reversion nourish not too far from the yew tree, the life of significant soil. Midwinter spring is its own season, sempiternal, though sodden towards sundown, suspended in time between pole and tropic. When the short day is brightest with frost and fire, the brief sun flames the ice on ponds and ditches in windless cold that is the heart's heat, reflecting in a watery mirror a glare that is blindness in the early afternoon. And glow more intense than blaze of branch or brazier stirs the dumb spirit. No wind, but Pentecostal fire in the dark time of the year. Between melting and freezing, the soul's sap quivers. There's no earth smell, nor smell of living thing. This is the springtime, but not in time's covenant. Now the hedgerow is blanched for an hour with transitory blossom of snow, a bloom more sudden than that of summer, neither budding nor fading, not in the scheme of generation. Where is the summer? The unimaginable zero summer. If you came this way, taking the route you'd be likely to take from the place you'd be likely to start from, if you came this way in May time, you would find the hedges white again in May with voluptuary sweetness. It would be the same at the end of the journey. If you came by night like a broken king, if you came by day not knowing what you came for, it would be the same. When you leave the rough road and turn behind the pigsty to the dull facade and the tombstone, and what you thought you came for is only a shell, a husk of meaning from which the purpose breaks only when it is fulfilled, if at all. Either you had no purpose, or the purpose is beyond the end you figured and is altered in fulfillment. There are other places which also are the world's end, some in the sea jaws over a dark lake in the desert or a city, but this is the nearest, in place and time, now, and England. If you came this way, taking any route, starting from anywhere, at any time or season, it would always be the same. You would have to put off sense and notion. You are not here to verify or instruct yourself or inform curiosity or carry report. You are here to kneel where prayer has been valid. And prayer is more than an order of words, the conscious occupation of the praying mind or the sound of the voice praying. And what the dead had no speech for when living, they can teach you being dead. The communication of the dead is tongued with fire beyond the language of the living. Here, the intersection of the timeless moment is England and nowhere, never and always. Ash on an old man's sleeve is all the ash the burnt roses leave. Dust in the air suspended marks the place where a story ended. Dust inbreathed was the house, the wall, the wainscot, and the mouse, the death of hope and despair. This is the death of air. There are flood and drought over the eyes and in the mouth, dead water and dead sand contending for the upper hand. The parched, eviscerate soil gapes at the vanity of toil, laughs without mirth. This is the death of earth. Water and fire succeed the town, the pasture, and the weed. Water and fire deride the sacrifice that we denied. Water and fire shall rot the marred foundations we forgot of sanctuary and choir. This is the death of water and fire. In the uncertain hour before the morning, near the ending of interminable night, at the recurrent end of the unending, after the dark dove with the flickering tongue had passed below the horizon of his homing, while the dead leaves still rattled on like tin over the asphalt where no other sound was between three districts whence the smoke arose, I met one, walking, loitering, and hurried as if blown towards me like the metal leaves before the urban dawn wind, unresisting. And as I fixed upon the downturned face, that pointed scrutiny with which we challenged the first met stranger in the waning dusk, I caught the sudden look of some dead master whom I had known, forgotten, half recalled, both one and many. In the brown-baked features, the eyes of a familiar compound ghost, both intimate and unidentifiable. So I assumed a double part and cried and heard another's voice cry, "What, are you here?" Although we were not. I was still the same, knowing myself, yet being someone other. And he, a face still forming. Yet the words sufficed to compel the recognition they preceded. And so, compliant to the common wind, too strange to each other for misunderstanding, in concord at this intersection time of meeting nowhere, no before and after, we trod the pavement in a dead patrol. I said, "The wonder that I feel is easy, but ease is cause of wonder. Therefore speak. I may not comprehend, may not remember." And he, "I am not eager to rehearse my thought and theory which you have forgotten. These things have served their purpose. Let them be. So with your own. And pray you be forgiven by others as I pray you to forgive both bad and good. Last year's fruit is eaten, and the full-fed beast shall kick the empty pail. For last year's words belong to last year's language, and next year's words await another voice. But as the passage now presents no hindrance to the spirit unappeased and peregrine between two places become much like each other, so I find words I never thought to speak in streets I never thought I should revisit when I left my body on a distant shore. Since our concern was speech, and speech impelled us to purify the dialect of the tribe and urge the mind to aftersight and foresight, let me disclose the gifts reserved for age to set a crown upon your lifetime's effort. First, the cold friction of expiring sense without enchantment, offering no promise but bitter tastelessness of shadow fruit as body and soul begin to fall asunder. Second, the conscious impotence of rage at human folly and the laceration of laughter at what ceases to amuse. And last, the rending pain of reenactment of all that you have done and been, the shame of motives late revealed, and the awareness of things ill done and done to others harm, which once you took for exercise of virtue. Then fool's approval stings, and honor stains. From wrong to wrong the exasperated spirit proceeds, unless restored by that refining fire where you must move in measure, like a dancer. The day was breaking. In the disfigured street, he left me with a kind of valediction and faded on the blowing of the horn. There are three conditions which often look alike yet differ completely, flourish in the same hedgerow: attachment to self and to things and to persons, detachment from self, from things and from persons, and growing between them indifference, which resembles the others as death resembles life. Being between two lives, unflowering, between the live and the dead nettle. This is the use of memory for liberation, not less of love, but expanding of love beyond desire, and so liberation from the future as well as the past. Thus, love of a country begins as attachment to our own field of action and comes to find that action of little importance, though never indifferent. History may be servitude. History may be freedom. See, they vanish, the faces and places with the self which, as it could love them, to become renewed, transfigured in another pattern. Sin is behovely, yet all shall be well, and all manner of thing shall be well. If I think again of this place, and of people not wholly commendable, of no immediate kin or kind, but some of peculiar genius, all touched by a common genius, united in the strife which divided them. If I think of a king at nightfall, of 3 men and more on the scaffold, and a few who died forgotten in other places here and abroad, and one who died blind and quiet. Why should we celebrate these dead men more than the dying? It is not to ring the bell backwards, nor is it an incantation to summon the spectre of a rose. We cannot revive old factions, we cannot restore old policies or march to an antique drum. These men, and those who opposed them, and those whom they opposed, accept the constitution of silence and are folded into a single party. Whatever we have inherited from the fortunate, we have taken from the defeated what they had to leave us: a symbol perfected in death. And all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, by the purification of our motive in the ground of our beseeching. The dove descending breaks the air with flame of incandescent terror, of which the tongues declare the one discharge from sin and error. Our only hope, or else despair, lies in the choice of pyre or pyre, to be redeemed from fire by fire. Who then devised the torment? Love. Love is the unfamiliar name behind the hands that wove the intolerable shirt of flame which human power cannot remove. We only live, only suspire, consumed by either fire or fire. What we call the beginning is often the end. To make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. And every phrase and sentence that is right, where every word is at home, taking its place to support the others, the word neither diffident nor ostentatious, an easy commerce of the old and the new, the common word exact without vulgarity, the formal word precise but not pedantic, the complete consort dancing together. Every phrase and every sentence is an end and a beginning. Every poem an epitaph, and any action is a step to the block, to the fire, down the sea's throat, or to an illegible stone. And that is where we start from. We die with the dying. See, they depart, and we go with them. We are born with the dead. See, they return and bring us with them. The moment of the rose and the moment of the yew tree are of equal duration. A people without history is not redeemed from time, for history is a pattern of timeless moments. So, while the light fails on a winter afternoon in a secluded chapel, history is now, and England, with the drawing of this love and the voice of this calling. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Through the unknown, remembered gate, when the last of earth left to discover is that which was the beginning, at the source of the longest river, the voice of the hidden waterfall, and children in the apple tree, not known because not looked for, but heard, half heard in the stillness between two waves of the sea. Quick, now, here, now, always. A condition of complete simplicity, costing not less than everything. And all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, when the tongues of flame are enfolded into the crowned knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one.